Mahatma Gandhi's biggest war was perhaps a war for the textile industry in the then India before it got split into Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so on. Today, that region of the world is actually the biggest, perhaps if not cotton producer, but certainly garment production from Bangladesh to Pakistan and even parts of India. This is also a major need of the human, apart from food, shelter, clothing. That's basically all we need. How is this sector faring in Nigeria? And what are the prospects for the new government that has come in? The government has promised to incentivize production in Nigeria and industry and to ensure that we add value to all the things that we produce that we have been exporting raw over time. But of course, this industry is also a massive industry in terms of dollars. And there are players already in Nigeria who are in the garment area and fashion and accessories area. Today we're going to be hearing from one of them to let us have an idea of what they're passing through, what could be done better, and what's the way forward in general. Today I'm being joined by a fashion entrepreneur, Mr. Adedoyin Balogun, MD of Baldon Clothiers. So welcome, Doyin.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, it's good to have you here.
Pleasure is mine.
And funny enough, this morning, randomly, I chose one of the shirts you did for me. Very interesting. My first time of wearing it, though. And
wow.
Yeah, I think I asked you to do a couple for me. Very nice work. Anyway.
Thank you.
You heard the introduction I made. What are the issues? Let's start with the prospects. Let's start with the prospects of your industry. Nigeria, at some point, we had some cotton production that was sizable. Over time, that seems to have faded away as we speak. I once passed through a company called Wakot in Kebbi State, I think, and it's been converted into a rice mill. That is West African cotton, but now they are more into the rice craze, if I could call it like that. It doesn't seem as if we're producing enough cotton anymore, such as to incentivize our textile industry. Our textile industry seem to have packed up over time. The ones in Kaduna, in Kakuri area, the ones in Lagos, Isolo, industrial area, and so on. Perhaps also in Kano. And the attempt to bring them back hasn't been. So generally, just to set the stage, what are the prospects of this industry in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here. I want to say the garment industry has equal or greater potential, as a revenue earner, more than oil.
Wow, really?
Yes. And I say that not just on revenue, but also on employment.
Employment, exactly.
Now, if you look at, and there are existing models. Bangladesh, for instance, this is their mainstay. This is their pot of gold.
Indeed.
You understand? And they are driving it seriously. So a medium or a small...
in Bangladesh, they don't necessarily produce the largest cotton in the world anyway.
Not necessarily.
But they pull
exactly.
resources and
so there are different factors that come together. One, you talk about the raw materials. Two, you talk about the people.
The people.
The people. Three, you talk about the equipment.
Exactly.
Now, all these things have to come together that lead to the market. And that's what makes them very attractive, that people would move from US all the way there.
Yeah.
For a lot of the stores, and that's why, if you check your garments, and for a lot of garments, t-shirts, shirts, you see made in Pakistan, made in Bangladesh, made in Vietnam.
Yeah.
They don't have two heads. But the government has seen, and going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, clothing, shelter.
Yeah.
It's a common denominator for every human existence. So if we have that as a basic, what are we doing to harness that? Unfortunately, we've not taken it seriously. It is big, and it's spiral bounds. There must be. It's a whole chain, as it were, it's a whole chain that it feeds off from and feeds into. So you're talking about the cotton, Now, you have cotton growers.
Right.
Are the cotton growers assured of off-takers?
Okay.
Are they assured that when they off-take, right, it's the price at which they're going to take off from will be competitive enough? Why would I grow cotton as against growing cannabis?
Exactly.
For instance. Or why would I grow cotton vis-a-vis growing rice? All right? So that's point one. Now, when the cotton is grown, the ginneries that process the cotton into the yarns, do they have enough resources, to turn it into the yards that we need? Don't forget, there is the cross-border smuggling, and there's the cheap imports from China. All right? Can we, in all honesty, compete at the price points that these things are coming in?
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis our cost of production, our cost of, powering, the equipment, machines, technical expertise, and all that. On a scale, how do we weigh? Is it not just cheaper? It's not just better, to just import?
Just import them, yeah.
Exactly. Because as fashion designers, as producers, we are at the very tail end of the value chain. What we just do is add value to the fabric.
Exactly. Yeah, the ones that make the garments.
Garments. Exactly.
So I was surprised that Bangladesh is known as a garment producer. Even if you checked all their profile online, it's garment. They're
yes.
the ones sewing for the world.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of employment. But I remember also those days, because I think I lived somewhere not too far from Aswani in Lagos.
Okay, yes.
We remember Aswani textile those days.
That's right.
And every time you see hundreds of people trooping into
That's
work
right.
or closing from work, all over that place, up to Ladipo area,
Absolutely.
and so on, but those things have disappeared. However, I also worry that perhaps the technology has changed beyond what we could manage. Because I also remember that the Buhari administration tried to reposition that, but they called all the old guys that used to invest in textile, give them some financial incentive.
Those ones
they recouped their money and walked away.
There we go. That's it.
So which way forward for us?
It's we need to take a holistic approach, and it's not one silver bullet, right? We need to let's look at our cotton farms, right? What happened? Let's start from there.
Okay.
What happened? Okay, can we get more cotton growers? Can we get improved cotton varieties?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Can we invest in better technology? All right, for the farmers.
But that has to be all private sector.
Yes. So that is step one. We talk about the ginneries that produce these cottons for the textile mills. What are their problems? Why did they become moribund? Is it the access to finance? All this must be discussed. All right. So that's step two. You go to the textile mills. All right. Now, what is the issue? They tell you, oh look, there are cheap Chinese imports.
Exactly.
It's not making production competitive. What do we need to do? Do we need to raise tariffs? Because really, you can't ban a lot of these things.
Yeah, you can't.
You understand? You just make people more creative when it comes to smuggling. All right. So we say, okay, can we raise tariffs so that whatever we are selling becomes competitive enough? If it's produced in country, it becomes more competitive than the ones that you would.
Yeah.
For instance, nobody's saying don't bring in your luxury cars, but if you're bringing your luxury cars, you're going to pay almost 100% duty on your cars. So it is a way to discourage and incentivize local production.
Right.
We must be strategic about what we do. So we talked about the farmers, talk about the ginneries, we talk about the textile mills. So we have that on one hand of the equation.
Right.
Then what happens to the garment factories?
Exactly.
Do we even have garment factories? We're not talking about.
I thought what you run is one is a garment factory.
So it's still so on.
Which can be expanded.
Yes, exactly. So I have a staff strength of about 100. Now, in Bangladesh, I'm regarded as a
micro,
very micro
producer.
Because a small factory in Bangladesh is about 5,000 people. A medium-sized factory is about 10,000. A large about 20,000.
I think what works for them is perhaps all these designers.
Exactly. So they have templates for them.
Maybe Primark, for example.
Yes. Can you produce 1,000 pieces?
Yeah,
Can you produce 10,000
maybe
pieces?
Next, maybe which other one? All these other guys.
All these, yes.
That have all these outlets all over the world.
Exactly. You know, now you now go to the other hand, which is the tailors, which is the people that are going to couple these things. Unfortunately, we have a dearth of vocational institutes.
Okay.
Do you understand?
That's another thing.
And that's why we have a lot of imports from other West African countries. Your POP, your Tyler. Why? Is it that they are better than us? Not necessarily. But the way I would go to university is the way they go to a technical or vocational school. So there's a curriculum, there's a syllabus. They are taught tenets. They are taught ethics. So their work ethics, when they come out, is much better. They're more disciplined. You know, when we go to a school, they say, what's your discipline? Yes, you know, they are more disciplined in whatever they've gone to learn over a period. A lot of the people we have in our artisan space generally, how did they learn? A lot of them learned due to poverty.
Yeah.
A lot of them learned due to there was no choice. Exactly. Yeah. So is that okay? Go and join Baba Sura down the road.
Exactly.
Do you understand? Now what happens is that there's no curriculum. It's whatever the man sees to do that you learn, and you learn all his idiosyncrasies, his attitudes, you know, his vices. Is all imbibed, you know. Then does freedom for you, and launches you out into the world as another nuisance that he has replicated. You know, you know. So unfortunately, that's what it is. You know, we don't have proper structure, and not until we speak to that. Who says we can't even export human resource in that area? Yeah, you know. Okay, which is what India has done. But do you think that maybe we as a people we've turned out to be not very patient people? The people in our government oftentimes cannot hold a policy for long and run it. Democracy does not help because, to a large extent, after 4 years.
The moment 4 years, you know, the new guy comes in, he wants all his own new policies, he pushes away, everybody wants to shine. And of course, most of our people don't also want to stay long in anything that they're doing. Everybody wants immediate rewards and what have you. So
I agree with you.
Which way forward?
I agree with you, and it's a systemic problem. You know, our values have eroded, and they've eroded fast. You know, but it's not all gloom and doom. Yeah. What happened to our NOA, Orientation Agency? What happened? It used to be MAMSA back in the days. Yeah. That said, if anything you're doing, do it well.
Very effective as MAMSA. Exactly. Honestly.
And it trickled down. Professor Jerry Ghana, I mean, even as I still remember the adverts, I can still replay it in my head.
1991 when I went to serve, you know, everywhere was MAMSA,
so,
MAMSA.
You know, there was mass mobilization. We still need that mobilization and orientation. You know, unfortunately, everything's about immediate gratification. No. So it's a lot still has to do with the government, you know, in terms of directing policies and people. You know, how are you reorienting the minds of the people to say, look, you can be in this for the long haul?
Okay, now I'd want you to think about something. I want us to be able to put some figures to some of these things. What is likely the volume of business that can be done? What can this add to our GDP, plus or minus? You know, and of course, given this importance of this, maybe if there are 200 million Nigerians, including children, they need to wear clothes. Why are we not the one producing this, and so on? So we'll go on a break now, and when we come back, we'll continue this discussion. Welcome back to your show. We'll be discussing the prospects of the textile and garment sector, indeed, in Nigeria, which is a very important sector. After food, perhaps, is clothing, before we even begin to talk about shelter. for human beings. It's a wonderful sector. I'll be discussing with Mr. Adedoyin Balogun, MD of Bowden Clothiers. So Bowden, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
But before we went on that break, I wanted us to put some what kind of numbers can we don't have to be accurate, but what kind of impact in terms can this have on our GDP if we got it right?
So the possibilities, like I've talked about, are only to be imagined. If an entire country can rely only on garment production as their crude oil, they are landlocked. How much more we?
Yeah.
In fact, before I go to that question,
And funny enough, you know that Bangladesh?
Yes.
They seem to be doing incredibly well with their economy lately.
Amazing. So
even over COVID.
And here's what has happened. Here's the funny thing about where we are positioned. I was with one of the consultants for the garment industry in Bangladesh, and he says he doesn't understand Nigeria. And so I was curious. I said, why do you say that? He said, because the average American would rather produce in Africa and Nigeria specifically. You talk about Nigeria, Ghana, as against the Far East. And I was curious as to say why. He said, because our location geographically is half of the time.
Oh, yes.
So if it takes 24 hours or 26 hours to get to Bangladesh, it takes you what? Almost half the time, you know, to come to, and same thing happens with shipping.
Yeah.
It takes a longer route. Time is money. But do we have our acts together? I dare say that as a single line product, garments, if the garment industry is properly incentivized, properly restructured, we can do 20 to 25% clean
of the GDP.
Of the GDP.
Okay, let's even take it to 10%. That would be something, because even the crude oil sector is struggling around 10%.
So
lately.
the crude oil sector, don't forget that it's a specialized sector that has limited players.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Good. For the garment, we're talking about even the human element in terms of the engagement. The number of people that can be engaged in industries, right? Where you now say, okay, you know what, we're going to set out small, medium, and large scale, just like the Bangladesh.
Have you looked at, for example, if we're unable to ever reposition our cotton growers,
yes,
for example, is it possible to source from neighboring countries, or what can we do, for example, to focus on the garment? If textile is not working, can we focus on garment?
So presently we are already focusing on garments, and I dare say Nigerian clothes are very popular.
Okay.
Right? West Coast, East Coast, down south, and it's even gaining traction internationally. Don't forget that we have a lot of diasporans that have relocated. Now, as you relocate with your culture.
Oh, so that's a culture.
You relocate with your taste buds. You relocate with your values and your garments, what you like. So by virtue of that Japa, phenomenon.
Wow, that's a good part of Japa.
Yes.
Oh yes.
We have that export, right? It might not be in the racked up numbers yet, but it's gaining traction.
Interesting.
All right. So that is one thing to look at. Now you look at the people that can be mopped up. So we have the unemployment rate. I dare say a good chunk can be channeled into the garment industry. Already at our own levels, we are doing so much. Now, I imagine scaling it up.
Right.
And saying, okay, you have 100. What do you need to make it 1,000?
Exactly.
What if we come in, and give you interventions, long lead machines, which is one of the things China does. You never really own your factory.
Oh, okay, really?
But you are given a factory to run.
Is it not better not to own? So that if you are tired of the business you work
exactly.
with,
So,
rather than you're stuck with the real estate.
But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that here. So as an entrepreneur, you have to get everything. You have to get your machines, You know,
Your
you have to get your
building.
building, you have to get your equipment, you have to, I mean, you literally have to get the entire line.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that can be very burdensome. You know, you tie down so much resources, you know, just trying to get your production.
I'm going to challenge you on something because I want us to dovetail into your industry proper. You know, I realize that Nigerians are not used to, for example, walking into a shop,
Right.
and buying a native dress off the rack.
Yes.
So we give to a tailor, we're waiting, but hardly will people go and buy, certainly not maybe a Barbariga plus the other ones and so on. But even a mere shirt in this country is not very common. I went to Kenya and I saw in Kenya that I bought this kind of shirt, about some of them off the rack, you know, and they're quite okay, even though I noticed that the Nigerian style is a little bit more sophisticated if I came to you. Yeah, but these are mass produced and were being sold en masse, you know. So how do we get to that point? Number one. Number two, I want you to look at this. The other time I was in Kotoka Airport, and there was this guy weaving the kente,
Right.
you know, and of course he was using the loom,
Right.
the 17th century technology. And of course on the floor there was his phone, which was on an FM station. So I saw how the Western innovation has caught up with we in Africa still doing this loom, which is very slow. And that is how kente is weaved. Ashoke is weaved.
Same thing.
The Tiv Ange, the white and black
That's
one,
right.
and co. Perhaps even the Fulani.
Usually all the native.
Perhaps the reason why we're not able to clothe ourselves is because we have not innovated our technology to be able to mass produce the textiles. So because we cannot, if you look at where they weave the Ashoke, it takes so long a time. So we now only reserve it for ceremonies.
And big
but
occasions.
the truth is that if that was the clothes that people were wearing in times past, perhaps we should make it more available to people. What do you think? Two questions now.
So let me start with the last one. And it's not just about technology, it's also about innovation. So typically our clothes are heavy. The Ashoke is heavy. The kente, the original kente, is very heavy.
Very heavy.
You understand? We're in the tropics.
Yeah.
There's no basis for us wearing that kind of clothes. Have we been able to say, okay, can we make the cotton yarn lighter?
Lighter.
Do you understand?
And you'll be able to produce even more.
Apart from mechanizing and automating the loom. You know, this loom that we pride ourselves in was what Jacquard used back in the days. And it has morphed.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, it's true.
It has morphed over and over and over and over again, you know, to the textile mills that we have today and those equipment. But the question now is, to that local man, you know, who is maybe in his 60s, going 70s, his son, right, who went to get an education in school, is he interested in bringing value and innovation to that trade? Or is saying, no, this is not something I want to be associated with. It's too dirty.
Right.
So that's a problem.
Okay.
All right. Two, what's happening to all our research institutes?
Exactly.
You know, to say, look, there are quicker, better, faster ways, you know, of let's create this machine that can give us the same, you know, output, you know, but is lighter, you know, because everything works in sync abroad. There should be a nexus between the farmers, the garment industry, the researchers. Now you have some spots where they say you have fabrics that they say it is wrinkle resistant.
Yeah,
it's an additive of different things to cotton. You know that this is a microfiber. If they add microfiber to this, it gives you that wrinkle-free nature. Or let's put a bit of polyester. These are things that
science and technology
exactly must come together.
Innovation.
You understand? And it's okay. We are able to produce this.
So perhaps we don't have that innovation mindset.
We don't have it.
Look for it.
We need to. It's very, very important.
Because innovation is how the world got to this point.
Absolutely.
And those who innovate understand that people want life to be easier for them.
Yes.
But I think maybe here in Africa, we still don't understand that if we innovate, it's going to be better for everybody. Many people have ideas and then they keep those ideas from everybody and all. Yeah.
So that's a problem. Okay. Now going back to the issue of walking into a store.
We're almost out of time, so you run out.
So you need
1 minute.
So a lot of things need to be happen. One, we need to have standardization.
Okay.
So if you are a 17.5 large, if you go to the store, will you pick a 17.5 large?
Okay.
And it will work for you, which is what happens when you travel abroad.
Standardization. How do you achieve that? Yeah.
So there are templates that must be,
Okay.
and you know, that's why when you talk about SI units, you know, there are templates that must be introduced even to the garment industry. That look, this is how a 17.5 should be. That's where you have SON, for instance. You understand? These are standardized. These are organizations responsible for standardization, whereby this is what we expect of a 17.5, a 18, up onto the micro level.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Then of course you talk about access to financing. You don't want your money being tied down. You know, at the time I produce. Okay, so if I produce 100 or 1,000 kaftans, who's going to take it off me? Because the average Nigerian wants individuality.
Exactly.
I don't want mine to be like yours.
Yeah.
I want to stand out and everybody should look at me twice. Yes. So that's another thing. It's the way we are.
Anyway, you know what? That's as much as we can take today. It's been interesting talking to you. Perhaps we still have to expand the discussion.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, I'll be calling you another time to come and be with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, viewers. And it's been a great time with Mr. Adedoyin Balogun, Baldon Clothiers. See you next week.